The northern Flinders Ranges in South Australia is a harsh, unforgiving, but beautiful place. This country has seen years of grazing depleting the landscapes, but as Alex Nankerville, Conservation Programs Manager for the Nature Foundation of South Australia explains, something unusual has been happening at a property called Witchelina.
Witchelina is a ex-pastoral station in the northeast pastoral district of South Australia, in between Lake Torrens and Lake Eyre. It's a 4,200 square kilometre nature reserve that is highly diverse and variable in its landscapes. Our main objective is to manage total grazing pressure and to keep the predation pressure at a low point. So the fauna that lives here, the birds, the animals, the mammals, the reptiles can thrive again.
Getting around Witchelina can be tough going. But I've come out here with a bunch of zoologists, biologists, geologists and other ologists to have a look at the regeneration that's occurred here over the last decade. And our first stop is this rather impressive gorge.
Mount Norwest Gorge, it's a spectacular rugged gorge that dissects the Flinders Ranges that run north-south through the Witchelina Nature Reserve, and it's a diverse little area. It used to have a whole range of species living in here, yellow-footed rock wallabies, bandicoots, that sort of thing, and now it's in a process of recovering since Nature Foundation purchased it 9 years ago.
The last thing I expected to see out here was so much water, but as station manager Chris Reed explains, this is a swamp in a desert.
What we're looking at is Murrumbidgee Swamp. It's one of the 3 ephemeral waterholes on Witchelina Station. It drains from Lee Creek north into Lake Eyre. When it comes out of Witchelina, it's known as Deviation Creek. There's a big slug of water behind us, and when it's full, it's habitat to swans, pelicans and thousands of migratory water birds.
Dotted around the property are the ruins of previous homesteads, and while visiting one of these, Chris Daniels from the University of South Australia found a little bino gecko.
Behind every innocuous-looking lizard that you find out here is a really interesting story of some aspect of its life history. In this case, these guys can have populations that are only female and that exist through multi-generations where only females are present. And it's called parthenogenesis, and it's a major survival tactic for animals that live in really harsh conditions. Quite an extraordinary adaptation to this landscape.
Despite being a desert environment, there is a surprising abundance of wildlife. Maria Lauter from Flinders University has been looking at the zebra finches.
So this is a finch nest box, and they've been put out here 2 years ago. Finches are the labrets of the bird world, and this is one of 2 properties that finches use a nest box. So we've put 15 out here, and the finches are using them. Well, they like these acacia prickly bushes that you can see behind to nest, but once you put out nest boxes, they also use them. With a nest box, you can easily lift the lid, and you can see what's in there. They are basically being occupied year-round over here because there's a nice dam with water over there. Zebra finches are seed eaters, but they need water. And these boxes we found, since they've been planted here, since they've been put out, they've been used continuously. So this nest box now has 5 eggs in it, and there's a lovely female incubating.
And there are other gems in the dirt as well, as geologist Pat James, retired from the University of Adelaide, enthuses about the concretions.
I feel like a giant standing on a Martian landscape, standing here. They've got enormous, round, iron-rich, concretionary nodules in them. And like many nodules, they've got fascinating, fantastic shapes and You might say just pretty patterns, but they're just very unusual and absolutely fascinating geological features. Yeah, well, they tell you something about the very early geological history. They are sediments here, they're sandstones, most of the rocks, so they're quite pale. But inside that, then, there have been some small fragment, some iron-rich fragment, and around those they've precipitated more and more iron and just grown into these big footballs and chocolate eggs-like looking things, and then they're really hard, which is why they're called concretions, and so they stand out. So they're standing out like as if somebody's just laid a dinosaur egg on these things. Unfortunately, these are about 800 million years old, so there weren't any dinosaurs around. In fact, there was nothing around. There was no life around. So what they've actually grown around is a mystery, and you need to do research to find out what that mystery is, I think.
Other gems of nature are reappearing as Witchelina recovers from over a century of grazing. Who knows what the next decade of regeneration will reveal?